Do you have a
On your
little cheat
re-up.
sheet
Yep.
that you just looked at?
I mean,
Is that-
I've been so involved in this whole thing that
No. I just didn't know if you
It's-
looked at your phone and you had a cheat sheet.
I have
Or
an
you
app on
just-
my phone too, because sometimes this system wasn't well
All right.
chosen.
Wait.
Let's see.
Oh, Allison,
All right. November minutes.
Serious.
November minutes.
She doesn't, yeah, she has a problem.
You always find something.
Call.
You actually read them detailed. I just scan through.
Call the doctor.
Call the doctor. Okay, you got us. We're on.
Way to go, Allison. Now you can teach me. Any comments on November minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Where can
I love the turkey tracks.
Any other comments?
That's great.
Oh, is that what those are?
I don't know who planned it. That's great.
Nobody's gonna get to hear my charming voice.
There's one right there.
Yes,
Jane,
we are.
you can share that one.
Jane's using
It's not on.
No swearing.
He
Here, let me
doesn't
just
talk.
see, somebody say something.
I am saying something.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
There's a delay, but it sounds like the sound is there.
Yeah. Just sort of put it in the middle there, Jane.
I think only
It'll
two
pick
can
us
be
up.
on at a
No, it
time.
doesn't do it in the middle.
Oh, really? Won't it pick it up? It has to be right in front of you, Allison?
It does much tonight. Yes.
All right, we'll scooch it over a little bit. Here we go.
It's on too.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
good.
that one can be turned on.
Any other comments? on
Yes,
the
I have other comments in the Bellowin section,
In the which?
Bellowin section. I would say Anita presented that a group including Roseanne Patan from York is interested in developing a co-housing community. I don't have details about the group or where they're all from, but Roseanne is not from Brunswick, she's from York.
Okay.
I did speak with her, thank you. Concerning that one too?
Nah,
No, her
Miss
name,
Clancy.
her name is misspelled.
Oh, okay. I had to guess.
Are you sure it's misspelled?
Well, I have her email, and it looked to me like it was,
Two T's?
oh, hang on.
She wants all this in the minutes. Like,
What I have is P-A-T-A-N-E. That's what's there.
No, that's what there.
Oh, it is there, okay. Excuse me,
And
sorry.
R-O-Z-A-N-N-E?
R-O-Z-A-N-N-A.
Rosanna.
Maybe that's what I was,
Uh,
maybe that's what I was.
Anything else, Anita?
I can follow up on that, about whether that's true or not. I'm not sure.
Any other comments on the
Okay,
minutes?
yes, other comments on the minutes. Just one moment, please.
Anybody else?
No,
While Anita's looking?
I don't have, that's just the only paragraph I have
Is it?
comments on.
Any objections to approving them as
Amended. No, I'm in favor.
Great. Let's see. Any prospective members for the committee? Anybody's got any ideas? Kind of struck out on the last ones.
Where are we low on them?
I think Rockport needs one. So technically, you'd go to Rockport. Yeah.
One, two, three, four, yes.
Yeah. So because Bobby said not really. I mean, he just wanted
But
that
he
one.
seemed, when I talked to him, he seemed a little less like, oh, somebody else is asking me. I mean, it's almost like he wants to be wooed.
He wants to be what?
Wooed.
I went
Wooed.
to breakfast with him.
Not enough food, does it have to be
Check one of the
dinner?
minutes.
Does it have to be Eggs Benedict?
If he went to breakfast, he probably.
I sat and talked to him for a long time.
Oh,
Well, you know,
that's not the SI you mean.
Oh yeah, that's the day you saw me. Yeah.
so when we have our summit, maybe that's a good time to,
Ask around.
no, pull them in a little bit more, because we're going to have our flatbread.
A summit?
Oh,
Yeah, I forwarded you guys the email.
We'll cover that later.
we'll get to that.
It's in January.
If any of you are in Flatbread, say, hey,
Yeah, I was there last Tuesday.
Yeah. So his focus is, if he was in the group, he would be lobbying for that, a trail. So that's what he's focused on, a trail between Flatbread and Erickson Farms Trail. It goes up to,
So who is it that you said you might be talking to some more?
nobody,
At-
just.
okay.
Is he Camden or Rockport?
He's Rockport. Rockport is where we're short. Yeah. All right, please I keep bringing it up so it, kind of leaves an impression, and when you see somebody from Rockport, you go, oh. Maritime Farms. I don't have anything, only that I believe that I'm going to combine that with a couple things, with a Route 1 North update a little bit. I think Bob and maybe some town employees are going to go up and meet with MDOT and sort of check in on these various projects, like status of Route 1 North, status of Maritime, things like that. But there's nothing yet. But, it'd be good, I think it's time for me to check in on whether that's gone out for bid. You
Yeah.
haven't heard anything, have you?
The combined maritime,
Yeah, Washington
Just
Street.
that there was this whole crisis of funds and that maybe it was going to impact a bunch of projects, but it was mostly vague. It was what Audra said at the select board meeting.
Yeah, no, but it's been a month, so I'm going to check in with her. So, I know you guys are on the edge of your seats, moving on to the Riverwalk and the Knowlton section. You guys gave me some working orders to go back and
Meet with Bob.
meet with Bob, and when I was, let's see, so I did meet with Bob, and,
Falciani,
yeah, with Bob Falciani, and.
chair of the select board. I'm just,
Yeah.
sorry.
In Camden. Yeah, and as background to this, I also asked Audra what the reason was. Well, let me back up just for a second, just to remind you. So I was meeting with Bob to challenge the thing about Beth not being willing to build the lower spur.
As reflected in your minutes.
Yeah, and I asked Audra if she knew why Beth didn't want to, and she said, yes, it's because the engineering hasn't been done.
I thought the engineering was done.
That's what I thought. But then I went back and looked at the engineering drawings, and they were just draft engineering. And then I looked at what we've been using as that, it was the engineering drawings that were submitted to MDOT as part of the grant proposal. And it showed the lower spur, the spur that went to the dam. It was drawn in. But when Dan Ford actually constructed the main trail, there was a whole nother round of engineering drawings that had elevation and grades and all these details, and none of those exist for the lower spur. And so that kind of dovetails, and I went, ew. That dovetails because there's no way that we could get engineering drawings turned around in a week.
But why wasn't that mentioned like months ago?
Yeah, and did the money get sent back to the state?
Seems
Yes.
So we're out.
That's, what you said is not exactly accurate. This is a reimbursement thing. So the week after our last meeting, because we had the meeting and then I met on Friday, the week after, Beth had turned in all the paperwork, which meant, here's all the things we need to be reimbursed for. And so that was a final report that she turned in. Yeah. And so
Was that DOT,
This
the
is
granting
no-
agency? Who is it?
RTP, it's RTP, people, which is overseen, is managed by MDOT. So then I was like, well, what about fixing the culvert thing issue? Because you guys haven't seen it, but there's some serious erosion going on just below the Lions Club. And so I wrote a note to Beth about that, and I CC'd Dave St. Laurent on that, and he got back to me right away and said, let's go meet and talk. So he met and we chatted, which was a really great conversation, and he pointed out that any work that he could do he'd need to get a temporary construction easement from the Lions Club, because he'd have to pull equipment in there and get to work outside of the corridor that we had said. And it's right, he'd be working outside to rechannel, to build a swale so the water doesn't run over. And he goes, I don't think you're gonna be able to get that in a week. But he's totally game to do the work. So the next step is somebody needs to meet with the Lions Club and start the process of a temporary construction, which just means that we just need to get in there and build a swale on their property.
I'm kind of confused, Jeff, if we're done and the money is.
Oh, that's gonna be on our dime, that work.
On who's done?
Town.
So Camden.
Well,
Camden.
doesn't that has to go through a process, or did Public Works just go ahead and say?
Public Works just does that kind of stuff.
It's all caused by the school's parking lot, so that's not, this has been an ongoing issue. that is
Lions
not-
Club.
Not caused by the Riverwalk. You can see what they do plowing. They plow all of a massive amount of snow.
Down that road.
I mean, it's kind of a community parking
Yeah.
area, but it gets,
It gets a lot
I
of
mean,
runoff.
it's, yeah.
Yeah,
and
we
it-
walked in that the other
A
year,
lot of it has to
few
do
years
with
ago.
it should be I don't know who's responsible for plowing that whole area. Is that,
Probably
a
the
lot of it's
town.
school property.
I don't know.
Is that behind the bus
Are you talking
barn?
about the bus barn?
Yeah, yeah.
I think the school.
I think so too.
And then they plow in front of the Lions Club too.
Are you taking responsibility for this, wait a minute, my understanding from what you said is that we're not doing a pathway there, but now we're taking responsibility for making sure that erosion caused by the school is taken care of by the town? Is that what we're talking about?
No, the lower spur we lost that opportunity to build the lower spur because I didn't realize that the engineering wasn't done. Because I was going into these conversations like, the money's there, the subcontractor's there, the engineering's done, why don't we do this? And the missing link was, in fact, the engineering was not done.
So how much money did we lose out on?
I don't know what the final bill was, but we should be able to get that information. I would say $20,000.
I mean, it's not really that we've missed out on, it was that there was money left over from,
The 50,000.
right, which was thought that all of that was going to be needed potentially for what Danforth did do. And then there was money left over, so it was like, okay, great, let's try to
That's right.
scramble.
That's right.
And see if we can add
That's
on
correct.
this, and they were flexible about that, but it's not like it's lost, this is a revolving grant, there's continue to be funds available and,
Kind of. The town can only apply for one RTP a year.
yeah, but there's other, I mean,
There are not a lot of other for this kind of work, but they can only apply for one RTP grant. So
some of it is just so simple to get down there that I think Public Works
could do the
could
work.
probably do.
But the engineering needs to be done.
The engineering would need to be
I'm still
done.
confused about why, if,
So just to finish with Anita, and then Allison, your point is a good one. So the lower spur is sort of like, put that to bed for a minute. What we're talking about is the section of the Riverwalk that has already been constructed in front of the Lions Club, between the Lions Club and the river. The Lions Club has a access road or something that for some, I don't know why it's there, but there's a road that goes down a little ways and stops. And that road channels water down to the river, which the Riverwalk is between that road. It just makes it go down and it swishes across the Riverwalk and it causes erosion. So we looked at I looked at with Dave St. Laurent how to fix that, and he said, well, we'll put a swale at the bottom of that road, which will run the water and slow it down, and we'll bring it around, and then we'll put a culvert under the Riverwalk, and we'll just let it go into the river.
So it's engineering in advance of more Riverwalk work.
He doesn't think it needs to be.
It's caused by the Riverwalk, though.
No, it's always been there.
Pre-existing issue that.
No, but it will,
But
but it will benefit, whatever's gonna happen is gonna benefit a future Riverwalk there, because it's gonna be
There's a
diverted.
Riverwalk there. It's gonna
It's already there, but it's going to protect it.
Yeah.
The only tricky part is I have a sneaky suspicion this is where this is the area that the Lions Club is hoping to build a party deck.
But we've already talked to the Lions Club about doing a pathway, so, right?
That pathway's already constructed, it's already done. But this would be actually, and the Riverwalk is beyond their deck. It's not running into, that's why they thought it would be okay.
But the
They can't build out in
Riverwalk
shoreline
is
zone.
prettier if it's not being eroded from their
No
vantage.
party deck.
Yeah, so
The Lions Club.
it may come up to be an issue. I'm just saying that the concept of a swale would be right underneath where their deck would be.
Well,
Well,
Some
it
foundation.
shouldn't interfere with the deck.
It doesn't, because they could build it right over. But I'm just saying that they may go, oh, yeah. And then my response to that's going to be, you know what? Let's build the swale, and then we'll cross the bridge of what to deal with the water mitigation when you start doing the deck, because it's going to all change anyway.
good.
Did you already make that suggestion?
To the Lions Club? No.
I feel
I
like you're
gotta take
explaining this in a way that makes it seem like the Riverwalk is to blame for some issue, and it shouldn't be put into the pool of Riverwalk.
Well, I don't want to blame the Lions Club by,
It's the school's fault. And
it's not the school's fault.
I'll show you, I mean,
It's not, it's because
they need that for plowing reasons.
the
but
road,
It's not really a road, but I don't want to waste time, I'll just show you pictures later.
All right.
We can,
Yeah, I know
we can kind
exactly.
of deal with it. If
It's
you go
probably
there,
rain
I've had to
as much as
climb over
anything.
massive amounts. It gets worse in the,
winter.
there's a reason that it's opened is, because sometimes there's a gate that's closed there.
Sometimes, I don't know why.
But they have to open it so they can push the snow that way.
Yeah, we climbed through that when we were,
Yes.
remember, in January, whenever
Yeah.
we were down there.
But it
Oh,
certainly
that's
makes
right.
it worse to be flat, because
That's
it
right.
pushes the
There's a lot of
earth
snow.
that way, and it's an issue that predates the Riverwalk, and
Yeah, but
they may
so,
need to change their,
Snow plowing.
right. And wouldn't that interfere with is that where the party deck's going to go?
where?
Is the party deck how's the party deck connected to this?
It's, I think, but I'm not, this is the Lions Club talking about it. It's, you know that part that looks like it's just been recently seeded? At the bottom of the road, that little dirt road thing? That's where it would be.
Pretty sure that's within 75 feet of the.
It might be. But that's a different zone, so it's okay. It's a business zone, 25-foot setback.
Path, but, well,
Yeah, they're the
either
same.
way. I'm sure the Lions Club, it supports the Riverwalk.
Yeah, there's two factions in there. We run up against them before. But, so do you think, the last time we did this, we went in, Lenny and I went in and did a presentation to the group. What should be the strategy? Should we do a presentation to follow up and give them pictures and like, isn't this beautiful and isn't this nice and we hope you like it and all that stuff? And then, oh, by the way, We need to get
Oh, I forgot to tell, somebody contacted me from that preschool, actually.
Oh, by the way, we need to get what?
a temporary construction easement so that we can go in the spring and make a tweak to fix the
No, I mean,
drainage.
Dave do that. That's a municipal project.
What?
Let Dave do that.
Oh, he will, but he needs an easement, a temporary
Yeah.
easement access, construction
Yeah,
easement.
I'm sure they'll give it to him. I
They're
mean,
letting the school push all the snow there. I mean,
And we don't know for sure that it's the school pushing the
Right,
snow.
right,
I'm not
the-
sure that that's even really an issue about who's pushing the snow. It's probably inevitable. They have to put stuff somewhere, whoever's plowing there, so.
yeah.
I don't think it's this coveted area, though, is what I'm saying. Like, it's,
So Jeff, what are you asking
They might be
the
I think that's
Asking the group if they thought a strategy, which, should I just talk to the executive, the president, what is it called, the head lion?
Just touch base. Touch base with him.
He's called something like that. Isn't it, Richard, you know this?
I don't know. This is Bob Oxton.
No, it's not anymore. It's not. It's the lion, the head lion or something like that.
is it still John Cool? It was John Cool for a while. He's wonderful. And
Yeah, I don't know who it is, but I'll talk, it says who the president is on the website.
It sounds like if it's a town project, then the town should be the people talking to him.
Yeah, I agree.
Makes sense to me.
Dave St. Laurent is a likable guy.
He is. Dave asked me to do it.
Oh, well.
Well, why didn't you say that? Why are you bringing that up? Then yeah.
He said, he didn't say who to talk to at Lions Club. He said, you just deal with Lions Club and let me know how it goes.
Oh, okay,
Well, he
then,
probably imagines you have some kind of great connection there or something.
Like,
If you don't, then-
maybe rely on it.
Let's find out who it is
And see who the
and
contact
see
is.
who, then decide who the, maybe it's
The
somebody
strategy
who's
is.
best friend. And
yeah, I wouldn't do a big presentation, just go talk to.
But that might be a good
Yeah.
idea as a follow-up, sort of as not about this,
All right,
but just about the Riverwalk,
all right,
just to give them an update.
go for it.
I did get an email from somebody who teaches. at
King
that
Lion,
school.
Peter Martin.
King Lion, Peter Martin. Peter Martin.
That's what the website says. I don't know if it's up to date.
Who is it, Peter who?
Peter Martin.
Martin.
Oh, yeah.
That rings a bell.
Sorry.
He's a nice guy, too. He's the guy that helped us make this happen. Without him, it wouldn't have happened.
No, they do good work, that Lions Club.
I'm talking about him. I didn't know it was King Lion. I
Yeah,
didn't know it
King
was
Lion.
called King Lion.
And that's about all I have on that. Any questions?
On the Riverwalk at all? Are we done with the Riverwalk now?
Right now, in terms of update, the next thing that would happen, a big project is to work through the Riverwalk alignment and talk about the property issues.
That was Roseanne Baton.
Oh, I tried emailing her tonight.
Did you want to talk to her?
No kidding.
Is there an opportunity to, when would be an appropriate time for me to add additional information? I notice there's no.
About the Riverwalk?
Yeah, or just a comment or,
Sure, if you have some. Why not?
so the way, I see the wastewater treatment plant as a big obstacle, obviously, for the Riverwalk. And since we're spending $13 million there to upgrade it, and they're repositioning transformers, and Jeff, you had said that, you know, we follow, the select board has talked a little bit about the place, you know, how far are we along in the design there, and are we making sure that we maximize the opportunity to sort of reclaim some public space. We have a fence, we all understand why it needs to be fenced, but it feels now like more of it is fenced than actually needs to be. So looking at where it dead ends right now, figuring out, okay, well, where would we go from here, even as like a temporary measure or a permanent measure? I was a little bit alarmed when Jeff said that Dave said because the transformers are going, something, it made it seem like the design is farther along than I think anybody had realized, and now I think is the time to really press for, if there are things that can be done to change the design of whatever is happening there, we should just make sure to do that. If their kind of default is going to be to maximize the ability to sort of cut costs where we can, not change anything that doesn't have to happen, and then make it easy to plow. It's always about plowing.
So you're saying adjustments to
Yes.
design for what? How would you like the design to be
Well,
adjusted?
there hasn't been public input really into when you look at the amount of money that's going into this, even the select board, and I'm not saying it's anybody's fault, but it's just not as interesting of a thing, the wastewater treatment plant. A lot of it is just, the money is just technology that has to be purchased. But there are things there are certain things that can be moved, and there's no reason that fence needs to go everywhere. It's
We had talked,
so
and
we
I-
should be. I think there should be
we
pressure to have
About a come to the
public
next meeting.
input. You know, building. There's no building committee for the wastewater treatment plant. There's no.
It's a utility. So is there not a way to meet with, is it Dave?
Dave, we could ask him to come.
Yeah, and just update us, because we have two,
Well, he's
his
not-
project and the Pathways project are trying to,
Well, we should go through ADRA to make sure that it's.
however that goes, but
But it should be just in the back of everybody's mind, like, you know, when you talk to Jeremy, when you talk to, just get people thinking about it. We have exhibited, I'll make sure to alert the committee when we succeed in having some kind of a workshop.
Well, that was, Allison, my understanding is that Dave is reticent even to come to the select board with design plans.
Oh, yeah, I think they would definitely prefer just to do it in a, you know, their own little study group.
But hasn't the select board been asking?
No, I talked to Bob the other day, and I was like, oh, this is what Jeff told me that Dave said, and it made me feel like plans are a lot farther along than I realized, and when is the opportunity going to be to talk about this? And he said, oh, I completely agree, and then we talked about the select board goals workshop.
Is it something that the Pathways can just request a meeting and update on the design so that we know that the two projects dovetail?
Yeah, I think maybe if you write an email to, sometimes I get in trouble for,
Yeah.
So we're not
you
saying,
know,
That's okay.
so I want to be
So I-
effective and not,
Allison, I'm glad, I did meet with Bob, and one of the things I did talk about, because I think it was a spin-off of talking to you, is the, I don't know, I had an idea, is move the fence onto the other side of the road. I don't know if that makes any sense. You know the big deal about the problem with the Riverwalk going up between the wastewater treatment plant and the river? There's a problem. The problem is they plow the snow from the road onto the riverside. I'm not even sure that's legal, but they do it, and they can't put a fence there because it'll push the fence over. But there's absolutely no reason why they couldn't put the fence on the other side of the road.
Move the fence.
Move the fence, and then the Riverwalk could be right next to the road, which would get it out of the wetland.
right, and there's actually a lot of
And that's
space
the
there
idea.
that we should
It's like, that's an idea.
be open to the public. I mean, really,
But nobody,
we should walk
but it's
through and learn
sort
about
of one of
wastewater
those things,
treatment.
it's like, no, this is where the road is, this is where we've been
This is where
thinking
the
about
fence
it.
is.
This is where the fence is. Yeah, you don't
That would have
have
been an
to-
extra $1,800, and we were trying to save money, and we needed to
don't
decide back
know.
in
so
May.
is it so far
Maybe, I
along?
hope
I
not.
know I'm making something
Yeah,
up, but
yeah,
that's
I
the kind of
hope
thing you
not.
hear. And it's like,
Yeah.
I would have liked to know that if we had come up with an extra $1,800, we could have moved the fence.
We
It's just
still
an
can't-
example.
we still
There is
can't-
no fence there, so.
Right, it's just that,
So the thing is that the driveway goes down past lawn, and lawn until it gets to the first building. The fence doesn't have to be up here.
That's
It
right.
can be down here.
That's exactly right.
And then when it's down here and there's a building, then it can go on this side of that building, except the transformer is going to be on the other
No, you just use the
side.
building
Yeah,
as the fence.
right. And but the transformer, they want to put on the down
That's
riverside?
right. That's okay, but that's only involves the spur, not where the alignment would be for the actual main river
I
walk.
see.
well, all of this is kind of second, you're the only one that has actually gotten this information.
Well,
as far as I can tell. So it's a larger problem anyway with just.
yeah.
So if there's
So maybe write an email to put into Word, put it down on paper, what I said to Bob, and maybe,
I mean, I can just communicate it when I,
yeah, that in the report?
yeah, and to Bob, I find Bob is really a helpful ally, so I can check in with him, and then it is how the process.
Are you suggesting that first building?
We need to have a select board workshop. Hopefully, we're going to have a select board workshop about the wastewater treatment plant, and then everybody can come to that. And
Or how about just send an update to the Pathways Committee? The 2 projects are still ongoing. Fear not, Pathways, and here's the design.
I think Pathways should be fearful. I'm fearful. The select board's out of the loop too. It's not.
So if that's the case, then don't we as a Pathways Committee, if we've been alerted, don't we request some information from Audra? Don't we send an email to Audra and say?
Yeah, I'm processing that right now, Linda. I like this idea, Allison, where you do the liaison report. And you say, Pathways Committee has suggested that perhaps a consideration to get around one of the issues for the wastewater treatment plant is to consider moving the fence. And then that's it. That's raising the issue, and then it's like, it's another reason why the select board should be more engaged, big picture, with what this engineering and
But
design is going on. at the
She is to
wastewater treatment.
suggest that to the select board, you're saying?
This is in the report, and then spins off, we need to, the select board needs to have some idea what's going on, or at least get some input to Dave. Or ask the select board, should the Pathways then go and meet with Dave and?
Well, it's just sometimes better not to make it seem like it's only the Pathways Committee or that it's a specific. It is and they hate it when you suggest exact things like the fence should be moved from here to here. It tends to be better received when it's like, are we making sure we're maximizing the ability to? Anyway,
Yeah.
it is a larger issue than just the Pathways Committee because we haven't had an update. So maybe Bob may think it's a good next time at the select board meeting we should have an update on what's going on, and then we should schedule a workshop. I mean, if the select board has a workshop, that's a great opportunity.
I did,
Design
just
for the Pathways Committee to be
in
represented.
September, and I don't know if you guys know this, but I reported this, I pressed Dave Bolstridge hard to get an idea what's going on with the engineering, and that I would love to be a presence at these engineering meetings to provide at least some brain power related to the Riverwalk. And he said, not necessary. And I said, so are you telling me that you are going to maintain a piece of your brain and advocate and keep the Riverwalk in mind when you're doing this? He said, yes. And I said, are you sure you don't? And he said, no, Jeff.
This is
no.
what happens to me too.
Yeah.
So, you can respect that he.
Well,
And
no, but it's
so
not-
he has said,
But is it not possible at this point for the Pathways Committee to put a formal request into Audra? What's going on with that project that Dave is working on, so that we have a better idea as a committee what the design looks like at this
It's
point?
better that it just goes through the select board because it's not I don't want to put ideas in. I don't know what Dave Bolstridge is thinking because I haven't talked to him about this
No.
because it's supposed to go through Audra.
Right.
And then you guys, I think, are supposed to go through me.
However it's supposed to
But
go, we're just asking.
I think probably it's not been clearly communicated to Dave Bolstridge
Yeah.
that this is not just a committee advocacy. If it's just Jeff coming to him, there are committees that want to work on things that maybe are not fully embraced by the whole select board. I think it's more powerful when he doesn't know if it's a major priority for the town or if it's just a.
That's why I say the Pathways sends an email to
Good
Audra,
point.
just a formal request for information about the project design to date, so that our next meeting, we have an update about what the design.
It would just be odd for you to get something that the select board hasn't even, I don't think this exists.
Assuming that you will, assuming that all of your channels will work to get your design and your workshop and your update and so forth. But the Pathways Committee, now that it's come up, as a Pathways Committee member, I'm curious now, so I'm asking, does it make sense for the Pathways Committee just to say, hey, where is the design at? Ask for an update from the town.
Why don't you just participate in the workshop, that the, like, group exercise, instead of making it be like a separate,
Yeah.
like, we have us working together.
That's fine too, but
We'd definitely be at that workshop. That's
Like,
great.
I feel like it turns into committees.
It might be too late.
It's too, like, segregated between committees and the select board and as if the interests are
however it works,
separate. that-
however it works, I'm
I'm
just
just going
saying,
to talk to Dave.
an official request.
I'm just going to go talk to
From
Dave.
Pathways to say what's going on.
It's
No.
better to get them on the record.
Because no, then we'll do both. But I try to get it now on Dave. And then what I'll do is talk to Dave, and then I'll send an email to Dave summarizing what the outcome of that discussion was, and I'll CC Audra.
Then you're just kind of, I don't know, then.
I don't know what else to do. It's not our job to oversee.
Right, but that's why I think when you just go, when you speak with Dave
Gotta
individually,
trust him.
well, he has to know what the priorities are for the.
So
I mean,
what
we
is the
might, I don't want to waste too
How
much
does he
time
set the
talking about this,
priority?
but
Allison,
How does
I
he
just
set the
know, I
priority?
didn't even know, I think it's better if the conversations happen a little bit publicly, because nobody even knew that you were asking all these questions about the Riverwalk. I think you actually know more about where the wastewater treatment plant is at than anybody else involved in, like, more than the select board, more than, like, I didn't know that he was like, no, we don't need any of your input at these meetings. I
Yeah.
didn't know that these design meetings were happening.
Yeah, they are. I think
I
this
don't
is
know,
the
I'm
third
worried they're
or
gonna say,
fourth.
oh, it's already finalized,
There's been-
now it's gonna cost hundreds of dollars more
That's
if
the
you wanna.
Rockport Library right there, so.
There's
That's what happens
Allison is
though.
absolutely right, so that's why I say, as a committee, we say, where's everything at? Just an update, that's all we want, is for January, and then you guys do whatever you need to do to get your update, but we just want an update because we have a project, and in your minutes, it reflects something.
Well, isn't it
that-
fair
think
for
you're
us to
supposed to go
say,
through the
we'd
liaison,
like an
but-
update because
don't know.
we don't know when the input opportunity to be able to talk about
There you go,
pathways.
yeah, that's a nice, when, they'd like to know when
Yeah.
I'd like to know too, so it just feels a little, we'd all,
Then we're all on the
You
same
know, when
page,
is
and
there
it
gonna
doesn't
be
turn
public
into.
input into where we can have say in what's happening with the pathways?
now the story's gonna be, Allison got the Pathways Committee all
Allison.
riled up about.
no, you haven't.
No, it's
an
good.
issue that we've been interested in, so you're not getting us
No,
riled
I
up.
was kidding.
But can you just very succinctly clarify the difference between what you're advocating and what Jeff is advocating? Just
I think we're
as
just
succinctly as.
brainstorming. I don't know if it is different, I think we're just
Are-
bouncing off.
Are you saying that rather
don't
than
think it
Jeff
needs to be in the
speak to
minutes.
Dave Bolstridge and write the results of their meeting and send CC Audra is what Jeff suggested, and you're suggesting a request before the select board for clarity or
Well, I don't-
communication, or what are you suggesting?
Sometimes, it's that this whole process thing, sometimes I'm accused of doing things wrong, and sometimes other people are. So I don't think that works, because I don't think that's the highest chance of success of Jeff trying to put Dave Bolstridge on record just between the two of them. Without it being
I'm
communicated
asking what you're
first,
advocating. What are
that
you
it-
advocating?
That a vehicle, that it be clear communication to Dave Bolstridge that there is a strong select board and town desire, including the Pathways Committee, a strong desire to maximize opportunities for the Riverwalk and have public input into.
Or any other.
So you're asking that the Pathways Committee could come before the Select Board, make the request that there be better communication, and we be told when
you're, like, overthinking
when an
Well,
input
yeah,
time.
I think it's
Well, I
overthinking. I don't want it to come across as accusatory, because then it puts them
I'm
on the
not
defensive.
saying it's
No,
accusatory.
no,
that's why I'm
it's an
saying-
opportunity for input.
A formal request from the Pathways Committee to Audra might, just the way that was
think
coming out
Margot-
of Linda's mouth was just sounded a little too, but
I think Margot just made the point, speaking for the committee. Like, I understand you're trying to get the minutes, but I think it's.
I think this
We
to maybe
just
too
wanna
much
know
detail
when
for the
we can
minutes.
have input into the process.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
captured.
yeah.
That was good. Yeah.
right.
But it has to go to the town manager.
I think they say that you're supposed to go through, the liaison system doesn't work very well because you never know who you're, but technically, I'm not advocating for that system, but technically, I do think it's supposed to go. That's my job as a liaison, is to then go back and say, hey,
Okay.
this is blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
But I also don't want to get in the way of any other things that are effective for you guys, because you've been very effective without a.
I think it's fine. I think the message is delivered. Can take it forward.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Route 90. I keep putting that on the agenda because I don't think the summit 2020, that's another issue. And I think we need to come up with some kind of a process of how we are going to move the Route 90 idea of a multi-use path along Route 90 forward, and how to keep that in front of the town. And that's why that Route 90 keeps appearing here. One of the ideas we had was to get somebody's like Annika or a group of students to ask Patrick Adams, the DOT sort of head honcho on pedestrian and bikeways, to come down and visit the school to talk about this idea that Annika put forward last year, 2 years ago? 2 years ago. And because it would be kind of using the kids as a leverage to get the attention of the DOT. And that would be the sort of an anchor to start to say, hey, here's a little section that's built, now let's make it a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think what I struggle with that little piece, it feels like, unless it's part of a bigger vision.
It is part of a bigger vision. The vision is to have a multi-use trail all the way from Route 1 all the way to Route 17 on Route 90.
And then, so I think the Connector Summit is an opportunity to look at that from a global perspective
In the context of all the other
in the
things.
context of all the other things. Because, I look at it from a practical point of view of, the kids that talk to me that would love to ride their bikes, that their parents don't let them ride. That, just going from 17 to Route 1, is not going to meet their needs of being able to bike to school.
Because there are other hurdles.
Because there's other way bigger hurdles that that parents and bikes and things are not going to address.
Yeah.
And so.
So just to sharpen that point a little bit, so if we had a door-to-door multi-use trail for one of those parents, they would still not let the kids ride because they have other issues?
Oh, no. If there was a door-to-door.
So what
There's
do
a
you
door-to-door.
mean? What is the,
number of kids that actually live between Route 17 and Route 1?
We recognize that there aren't that many, but it's a major hurdle because of the speed and the size of the road and all that stuff. And we recognize that there are other connectors that need to be built in the future. But this one seems to be, no matter how much you build on the little roads, unless you have this connection, it's never going to happen.
So I think
This seems to
also
be the artery, I would think.
the other factor is RES and the redevelopment of RES, because people have different ideas of what that should be. Nonetheless, that's the extension of the village out. So I think, in my mind, yeah, we can talk about it and you can keep it on the agenda, but I feel until we have the summit to really talk with these other people about the whole area in general, then we can come back to that map, and then we can go back to the town and say this is really vital, and can we have Bill Napower help us get a grant for some planning for a pathway along Route 90. Bill Napower is the planner, he's only there 1 day a week. So I know exactly what they're going to say, well, we can't do that right now. It's
Right.
not high on our priority.
That's right.
But if we have a bigger coalition, which I'm hoping we could get in January, then we have a little bit more leverage to say, along with the along
And
with,
I'd say at that point, when we have a sort of this big thing, we can get a lot more kids that might be interested in.
We have the DOT to show up.
well, yeah, and then we talk about reclassifying Route 90. I mean, it's ridiculous that that is still a, what is it, a corridor of that, you know, you go 45 down past the school. I mean, there's 3 schools in that area, so. But I don't think anything's going to happen until we have the summit. I mean, it's already December.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. And Annika, there's a thing about the classification of Route 90. If we can't get it reclassified, I'm not sure we can get a crosswalk across it. They don't like putting crosswalks.
It's an arterial corridor.
Arterial corridor, that's it.
However,
How did we have one on Route 1? All these,
Because
how are
they,
there
they,
all these
re,
crosswalks
they,
on Route 1?
they recategorize it for small sections, and they allow it, and they reduce the
But
speed.
it's, when the lights are blinking,
they do
the
it.
speed's so low, so
Right.
why can't you have a
I think there hasn't been the conversation, and Jeff is right, we have to have the conversation. I just feel more comfortable doing the conversation after the summit. That's,
It might be that, I mean, your point is good, is you may end up with a drawing that shows this major artery that binds it all together, and that may give us a good story.
Yeah.
It might.
Can I ask Margot what she means by there are other issues, and if you had the pathway, that wouldn't be enough? I don't really understand what
It's
you meant.
usually getting from their house to
It's the
where,
house. It's
you
the
know,
last mile.
It's the
It's the
small.
last mile.
It's the small roads, or crossing 17 and 90. I've got a lot of kids who live over
yeah.
on.
The other side.
You know, on the other side of.
Tolman.
17.
Yeah.
But that, sorry to interrupt, but that intersection's going to get rebuilt too with the new fire station. So now is the time for that too. So
So if there was some sort of way to cross there, that would make a huge difference.
if it's a rotary.
Also,
What would they need to cross there? I mean, there's a light there, so.
yeah.
Yeah, but the lights,
There's no
the turn
crosswalks.
signals are, they need to be,
That intersection's so
I
different.
don't think there are crosswalks there, Jane.
no.
There's no pet control.
There might be one on the west side. of 90.
What's that?
I said there might be one on the west side of 90.
It's
It's perception though, but if the perception is that way, it doesn't matter what you build, they're still not gonna feel safe. I had guys in an argument today with somebody about the intersection of Route 90 and 1. They said it's not safe to go across there on a bike, and I said, there's a pedestrian crossing.
Yeah.
But you know,
There is
it's
a button you
but
can
you know,
Right.
that intersection is still one of the most unsafe intersections
Where?
in Knox County.
Because they're turning right there.
Which?
17 and 90.
Yeah.
It still
Oh.
has some of the most number of vehicle
Within an hour
accidents.
the other day because the light wasn't working properly.
Oh, yeah.
It is an engineering.
I wonder
No,
about
it
that
is.
when I came through about half
And
an hour.
that's, and you're right, with the new fire station, that may be exactly
Yeah,
the perfect.
we just allow it to happen.
So should we jump, because keeping Route 90 on there, I think is absolutely right. I think it should come after the connector summit.
Yeah.
Do you have a date for that yet?
I think, well, I mean, from the few that have applied, do we want to jump to that?
Thanks for asking, Margot. It's a little bit tangential, but I'll make a mental note of it. I'll talk about it later, but don't let me lose it. Is there an opportunity with the fire station rebuild?
Oh, we have to make noise, but it's not, it hasn't been drawn yet, so, and that's,
It's not in the budget yet.
it's not in the budget, right? So
Have to see what
we
comes.
just,
in the
I
budget
think
meetings.
Pathways can,
Are they going to reconfigure something?
yeah,
Yeah,
things
they
have
have
to.
to.
yeah.
Yeah, because it, I
The way
think,
right, yes, they do.
So,
They
okay,
have
so
to
let me
be-
push that on to a new item.
Yeah, because the DOT, it's the public right of way.
Well, let's talk
on-
about it later. Let's move on to the 2020, but I'll come back to agenda items. Go. Summit 2020.
so we've,
I know, Annika, you have to
Bike
leave.
awareness month.
Annika, is there anything you wanted to say?
Oh, no, I just wanted to come observe.
Okay, all right.
Thank you for coming, Annika.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we sent an email out, we got a few responses from them, we've got 4 responses. Looks like January 9th or the 23rd, I'd say the 23rd at this point, might be our date. Bobby Morgan's is willing to host it over a flatbread.
Is the 23rd good for him?
Yeah, he said just let him know the date.
Okay.
I have been in touch with, her name is Megan Grabble. She is the, sort of the GIS person over at Island Institute with the willingness to help us figure out how to go about mapping. So really the goal of this is to bring together the land, anybody who's working on trails of any kind, both bike and walking paths, and to create a map that would allow us to see the projects that currently exist as well as projects, goals that different organizations have, and sort of to be able to see where we have gaps. And from that, are there places where it makes sense for pathways to take those on, or whether these are opportunities for other organizations. I think we're gonna have to do some personal phone calling at this point to get some of the key players, but I'm not really sure. We've got, I think Siona Ulbrich is from Coastal Mountain.
Good.
Heidi Baker from Aldermere.
Yeah,
I
Heidi.
don't know who Wendy Andraser.
Stay on Heidi.
Wendy,
Heidi was
yeah.
committed to coming here like a long time. Never made it.
Wendy is
She'd be a great path.
Ray's wife, who's on the Parks and Rec.
Ask her again.
Perfect. And
Yeah.
Bill Post.
We've been looking for something to do together, so maybe.
So we'll make phone calls.
Yeah, and so my thought was I would be in touch with Megan. Ideally, I would love to see if we could wrap her into coming and actually being the mapper.
Yeah, along those lines, I bet we could get, I know I could get Camden to make a big map of Camden. I suspect we could get a big map of Rockport, too. I'm not sure what you envision, but
As like an
To-
park GIS? Or
like something like that, almost anything, and you plop it on the wall and people draw on it, or you,
We do this digitally.
Yeah.
or but for the summit, so people can see.
I think that's a great idea.
And then you'd have it digitally too, but this would be a prop, so that people could watch it and go like, yeah.
As opposed
Unless
to,
it was a digital
So we're
projector or
thinking- I was
something.
going to bring a digital projector.
And then do it that way. That's fine too. That's great. Yeah.
You don't want
Harry does both towns, so he might be able
paper and
to.
pencil?
But you're talking about
Marcus?
developing something that would be updated throughout time and like one of those layers that you see on ArcGIS that you can download and,
Yeah.
Exactly.
yeah.
So is the idea behind the summit, and pardon me for not keeping up with all this, but it's just Camden and Rockport? Or is
Right
there
now.
reaching
Well,
out
and
to
actually
other-
that's because Rockland would like to get into it, and I think our thought was let's start with just these 2 towns first to see whether we have some traction. I think there would be some real interest in blowing it up to even a Knox County, but at this point, let's start with something.
but if we have Johnny Unders, you know, who's called the Georges River, yeah.
Pass down to Rockland, full development down at the south end.
Yeah, it'd be great to do that.
Yeah, one of the things we're trying not to do is get it so big, because our focus,
It's so big so far, that's what
No.
I was wondering.
yeah,
Well, who in Rockland would you invite?
I don't know who's, I actually have no idea who's at the forefront of that in Rockland now. I just know that Rockland has been, you know, they've done some really strong work
Right.
for building facilities.
I mean, it's not a bad idea to,
And they have been very good about listening, I think, to their constituents there and acting on that, so.
is that Valley Geiger maybe? I mean, maybe we could just ask for Rockland, well, I mean, why not? Because we do have Glen Cove and
So are we bringing, are town people being in this, like our public works people?
they've been invited
Yeah, so maybe it would be somebody from Rockland Public Works to be,
for their pathways.
Yeah.
Okay.
because I don't think they have
Yeah, they're probably for
an
sale.
official
Just like
advocate
that.
or an official advocacy group down there anymore. I don't know if they do, but I haven't heard anything about that.
The trails, okay, All right, we'll investigate that. Are we doing the 23rd? Is that what we're?
Well, I think it gives us a little more time.
January.
January 23rd.
Flatbread, 5 to 7, right?
So, and who's invited to that? This is the first.
You got an invitation. I sent you guys,
Not that
you
I
and
know
Jenna
of.
an email.
You know, why does it say 7 to 9 on these?
Just Jenna and I, or how did?
7 to 9, I don't know. I thought it was supposed
I
to
thought it was
be
5 to 7.
Yeah.
It was going to be
5 to 7
after,
too, but
it was going to
these
be
say 7 to
after
9.
work.
These?
This doodle we
You
sent
can
out.
change it. You
Well,
can
7
change
to
it.
9 makes it easier for people who are working until 5 o'clock to go home, have something to eat and come.
Right, but
The
we
idea
said
is to have
refreshments.
pizza.
I
The
think
idea
we
is to have
meant
pizza.
5 to
I
7.
think we meant 5
I think
to
you meant
7
5
too.
to 7.
Yeah.
Because we had this conversation at the last meeting, and Helen, you weighed in also on this. It was the same discussion.
And we're having it at a
And we
food
made
place
this
anyway.
decision.
Huh?
We're having it at a food place anyway.
Yeah,
so
that's
Yeah.
the idea,
Get food.
is to get some synergy.
And we want to go home
with
to
that.
bed, so.
Hold on, so who's is this,
Well,
Like a-
I want to sharpen that a little bit too. You know, why Rockland and why not Lincolnville? Why Rockland, why not Hope? Why not
They're
Appleton?
too far.
And,
At this point.
my attitude is, we struggle with just playing in our own sandboxes, let alone trying to organize other people's sandboxes.
We were
I think
inviting
that-
George's River Land Trust.
Yeah.
because
And
they've
that's
got trails.
fine, because that's that big perspective, but I don't know if I want to get the town of Rockland involved too.
Well, you know, there's no harm in saying, we're having this meeting, if you'd like to join us, you're welcome.
I do think that there's value in that Glen Cove, we do have a sidewalk down there, and they at one point were working on
That's
their master
Rockport.
plan.
That's Rockport.
Right, but Rockland was working on its
Yeah.
master plan for that
Always
stretch,
involved in that.
and Rockport put a lot of effort into its comp plan to
Oh, that was
connect
the
with Rockland
plan
via
when Walmart
pathways.
was there and all that stuff?
No,
No?
that was a few years
Bill's
ago.
got all of that stuff because he was on the committee.
That was just 2013, 2014. So how about it's just an informal with Rockland, hey, if you want to show up. I understand Lincolnville too, and I don't know if that's.
No, I was not trying to get Lincolnville and
All right,
Rockland.
so let's not, but
Yeah.
if in fact somebody pops up from
Well,
Rockland.
I didn't mean to throw a wrench in this. I just, when you say the word summit, I always think of like, you know, kind of a.
It sounded
a
huge
big
to me,
deal.
yeah.
But it sounds like that's not what your vision was of this, so.
No, it's upstairs at Flatbread. It's
like a
so it's
workshop.
intimate, right? It's not a day-long conference.
Yeah,
That will come.
it's 2
That will
hours.
come.
It's 2 hours. It's pretty short.
Summit does
Tight.
kind of have a different ring to it.
Go with it.
I'll go with it. I'm trying to find the invitation, and also just to clarify, who do you want to come there from the,
Nice people.
like, does
So
Audra know about
Audra's
it?
been invited.
Who sent out these invitations? Just you? Was it you? Is that
Yeah,
what-
it should be under
It
my
was
name.
From us, from the two of us. and
Yeah.
It came from Linda.
To my
See,
select board
if you
account, or-
look in the,
I don't know if it went to the select board. I think
No,
it
I
went to-
sent,
No.
but I did send it to, I know I sent it to the liaisons too. I sent it to you and Jenna
My
and
person- You
Jeff.
usually use my I don't think I've ever gotten a select board email from you.
Let's see, John Anders.
I only got the draft from you. I didn't get the final.
Summit, should I search for the word summit?
Maybe
Oh
nobody
yeah,
got the
look at this,
invite.
Mid-Coast Connector Summit 2020.
Far out, it worked.
But that was just to my personal account.
It didn't go out.
I think
That's why we
I
didn't-
disregarded it as like not a town thing.
Yeah.
So it needs to
Because
go to
it's
her
personal.
select board
I mean,
address.
not with that, I'm bad about emails, is the other thing.
Okay, so you've got it though. That's,
So who
that's
should
important.
we meant to include our select board committee reps as well, okay. Do you want, it's like Dave St. Laurent, I'm hoping?
He's been invited.
Yes, he has. The 2 town public works people, the 2 town development people, and the 2 town
Managers.
managers. And
Yeah,
that's
because
pretty
Bill
much
Cove
it.
says he's coming.
That's pretty much it.
Should we, should
And plus the liaisons.
But plus the
Oh,
liaison.
there's a nonprofits, the Midcoast,
No, no,
this and
this is
that.
town people.
now
I'm
you've
just
turned it
talking
into
about-
something that actually needs to be, this actually needs to be a public
It is
thing.
public.
Okay.
What do you mean a public thing?
It's
Why?
public.
There's no decisions that are getting made.
No, what do you mean? It's like a workshop.
She's worried about 2 or more select board members at the same spot,
And
but
just
Sure,
committee,
most likely.
committee things are supposed to be public too. I mean, I don't think you are running, there's not a risk of like being ambushed by massive crowds of people if it just is on
No,
some
it isn't
town
gonna
calendar
happen.
somewhere. It's not a, I'm just,
It's in effect a town
Is
workshop.
that what you're talking about, or what?
I don't know, I don't really like this stuff that much, but I'm just trying to,
Well, if it's announced in the paper and just says,
it's like when the school board has a retreat.
No, it's,
I'm just kidding.
you can say Margot and Linda
Fine.
are pulling together the summit, and we're hoping everybody comes from these different organizations. I mean, we can approach it that way too. It's,
We don't want to just open it to, you don't want to just make it publicly known so that somebody who's like
That's
the
just-
biggest enthusiast in the world.
Come.
huh? We hope people come. That
Oh,
is
you
the
do?
point.
Oh, good.
Absolutely,
yeah, so
absolutely.
it's on the town
Need to be.
website. Yeah. And
So I could say it in my select board report.
Absolutely, please do. Yeah, no, I think it's important that,
Yeah, this isn't a closed meeting.
Well, I'm
it's just-
getting mixed messages because like the look of horror when I said it needed to be a public thing. It's like,
I
look
think
at you,
it-
Jeff's still stressed about it.
well, I'm getting stressed about the bill for the beer, but
Can this be a fundraiser for Pathways too? Are we going to do
no,
the
that's
future thing?
Friends of Pathways. You can't do that now.
You can't do a fundraiser, yeah.
Listen, we can iron out those legalities.
I think that's fine as long as, I mean, you can open it up, but as long as Linda and Margot facilitate very hard. Because the idea is not to open this up for conversations about everything. The idea is to create this idea of this, and I wrote it in the minutes, what we decided is 5 to 7 minutes, you talk about what you're doing, map out the connectors. Next person, and there'd be about 10 people that do that. That's an hour. Second hour is, okay, this is what it looks like. What are our next step? What are our next steps to move it forward to increase these connections? And if you have a lot of interested people, it may get derailed. You may never get there.
Not with Margot at the head of it. She knows how to lead.
You choose who's going to be able to speak and who's
That's
just
correct.
listening.
So we have a nugget of
That's correct.
information that went out in the invite that says
It's a good
exactly
nugget.
what it's about. I think we stick to that.
You'll be good.
Yeah, we're going to be good, and really, we want to ask people what they're doing and let them know what other people are doing. And everybody we talked to about this thought it was a good idea. Now it's just nailing down these people
Yeah.
to get them there on the 23rd. And it sounds like we've got a quarter of, actually more than that, we've got a third of well-representative.
Yeah, you're well on your
We've
way.
got Coastal Mountains,
Just
we
keep,
need
just
John,
send them out more and more,
and
just
we
keep
need
hitting them.
the NEMBA guys,
Did you get main sport?
well, who it means for it.
I don't,
Tyler.
yeah.
What does he do? What's his?
I don't think they build anything.
all those little trails and.
John
Is
Anders?
he NEMBA? Yeah, John's been invited.
I don't want this like, I don't, it's a general comment, not a, like, put it in the minutes because I know every detail kind of thing. I mean, but I know that they're working on, I mean, like, Tom gets to your house every day by going on.
Oh, back there.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then they
that's
want to
NEMBA.
connect it to,
Yeah, that's NEMBA. We've
Yeah,
got-
they've been invited.
and then there's the, like, we've talked about it, the Kim Rockford Historical Society, expanding trails through main sport property.
So this is the point of having this summit, is to find out what's going on. So who's the contact person there?
I've only talked to Tyler about it. Tyler's,
So Tyler's
but I
doing
don't want to like.
by the
can't-
main, by the Kim.
We were
and
talking
Rockford.
about how in the future, maybe because the Historical Society has all that property through Mary's,
Yeah.
you know, and it would be a logical, I don't know enough about it to know exactly where the trail goes, but Tyler showed me, and I can't remember how much of this is like just Tyler's idea on paper that he's only sharing with me.
Tyler Smith.
Yes. But somebody should just reach out to him and see if,
Tyler's last name?
Tyler Smith.
Yeah,
He had a whole map he showed me.
and I can't remember if he's on there or not, but absolutely, because they own so much real estate now, and at one point, they were in favor of doing something along Route 90 in that land that they own there. Right, exactly, but they still own the land, so, good point.
But
Tyler's on the
that's a
Historical
very good-
Society
that's a very
board.
good contact.
We'll get him,
Yeah.
we'll send him an
And
email.
the other part of that is, you know, we people that know all these little squirrel paths that they've been using forever. And so then the question is, are those something that we want to keep as their own little private squirrel paths? Are they going to be paths that, want to be part of a
Well,
bigger system?
and the goal is to find out who has the squirrel paths and see if they would like to join in a
And
bigger
this is
vision.
really coming from that place of sort of mid-coast economic development and this whole outdoor economy and building this, like.
And public safety.
And public safty and,
Maybe that's how you frame it.
What's that?
Maybe that's how you frame it.
Well, it's
Outdoor
kind of how we
economy.
framed it when the invite went out.
I think I've seen that.
Yeah, the outdoor economy and health of the community and blah, blah,
Yes.
blah, 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 blah.
There's the old railroad bed that goes through the back of Midco Solid Waste property. Sometimes when I have time, I go out there and just like prune a little bit, and it's like a real path.
That's the lily pond.
Oh dear.
Oh no.
Flashbacks.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was on the list
Speaking
to
of
be.
PTSD, oh my God.
Oh no, what?
Oh,
It's
that's,
ancient history.
yes.
Don't even go there.
What? I had heard this before when I brought it up that, it was because there was resistance, is that
Well,
what you're
don't
saying?
forget that,
Oh, that's putting it mildly.
Putting it mildly. There was full-on revolt.
From which?
The people who live back on the pond, or back on the Rockport end of that, whatever that street is.
Lime Rock
Lime Rock's right.
Lime Rock Street.
at the very
who
end.
owns the rail path, the rail?
It's a combination of Midco Solid Waste, the Y, and then,
Yeah.
In that part, but not
No,
all.
Not on the other side.
every abutter owns it because there is no historical deed. It was a private rail. It was not a public
This is like
rail.
a whole other can of worms.
well, I'm on the Midco Solid Waste Board, and I go back there all the time, and some of it is just purely on Midco Solid Waste property.
Yes.
And it's the most amazing road. It's
It's a rail
Old
bed.
was just
railway
wrong.
bed.
I
It's
mean,
an
I
old
was even-
railway bed.
yeah,
It is.
it's, it's actually what Lime Rock
Wait.
used to be.
I can pull this
It's-
off at another time, and we can talk about it.
You need to just catch up with
Yeah,
previous history.
This is about 10 years ago that we.
I know there's
did
some
this.
stuff, but you could have a little bit of just in Midco Solid Waste and the Y, and then work on the other
We
people
tried
later.
that. I'll talk about that.
Well, Midco Solid Waste would say yes now.
They did, yeah, they're
Kevin
not
has
the
a-
problem.
It's the other people.
The Y?
No,
Private property owners.
But he's going to brief you on it
I'll
all.
brief you on it. But maybe Midcoast would say it now. Midcoast is the one who stopped it last
Well,
time.
Cameron has 41% of the vote, and Bob and I would both. I mean, it's
Midcoast
not-
Solid Waste
it's-
is who stopped it last time. They're
It's
the
a
ones.
totally different board now.
Yeah. Well, we lost
So-
150,000 because of
So
that.
can we get back to just what our charge is, because this is in like 6 weeks?
Thank you.
And so is part of what you're wanting to see come out of this an ongoing collaboration between these groups?
I think it's to see if there's the desire and the will to have an ongoing, and certainly to, I think, help kind of inform all of us where gaps are. It's kind of to do a gap analysis. And the hope would be, like, out of this, it's gonna make total sense to do Route 90.
Yeah.
And
That'd
that
be
we
a nice-
then have, the reasoning, that it's not just, that it's gonna be because it connects these places.
Yeah.
And that's our role.
And it does that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that is the main goal.
Thank you for bringing us back on that one. What else
So
on,
Tyler says it's a great one to get connected. Is there anybody else other than who we've already mentioned? We've got Coastal Mountain Land Trust, we've got,
Everybody's on the email so you guys can all see who's been invited, but
well, I didn't get it. Maybe it
I
got,
didn't see anything, but
maybe it got jammed by my
see,
junk mail.
I can't get all of our current members on this committee because you have them grouped under a group, so I don't,
I'm surprised. I'm,
well, we've got
Who's your
Ward.
ally in the Rockport Select Board? Sorry.
Jeff Hamilton,
Is he
he knows about
an
this.
ally? Like a
Yeah, he's good.
passionate?
Yep, yep.
We've got Deb Hall and,
Yeah, Deb was invited, Bob was
on-
invited.
Deb's on Midco Solid Waste too.
What's that?
Deb's on Midco Solid Waste too. Sorry to
Okay, good.
bring it back to that.
Yeah,
but-
no, that's great. The more she knows, wonderful. It is a general just raising the
Right.
awareness.
okay.
Okay.
So that's the plan.
That's the plan, so we'll have one more time in January to talk with this committee about it before we do it. But hopefully everybody commits from this committee to be there.
Could we get somebody from the middle school coming?
I didn't, if you have
Did you have somebody
somebody.
in mind?
Just to,
So,
like, I have, Jamie Stone writes emails sometimes about concerns with crosswalks and her, but just to keep them too in the
I will gladly.
feeling
send her.
engaged with the river walk, because we're going to need their buy-in, and it didn't, the things that she wrote in the email, like her big points of concern for kids getting to school, like the most dangerous intersections, it didn't really correlate totally with some of the other priorities I had heard from other people, so it just,
Yeah,
as somebody who facilitates kids getting to school, maybe.
yeah.
It'd be nice if she got involved with this group rather than
so
writing to Audra.
from the minutes from last month, the places that were mentioned that, so we've got Coastal Mountains Land Trust, George's River Land Trust we mentioned tonight, and Maine Coast Heritage Trust is another that was listed in the minutes last month.
And NEMBA and.
Yep.
Those are the ones that I haven't heard talked about.
All right. We jumped over bike awareness map. Anita, did you make some, we jumped because we went to Summit. Do you want to talk about that, that map?
Yeah.
This is, if you're, Dave St. Laurent asked us to put together a map of where the bike ways are that we would hope to have someday in Camden.
So,
And also all of your other
And
priorities,
all
like
the other the
sidewalks.
sidewalks. And we already had a map that Dave has seen of the sidewalk priorities. So he has that.
Well, I talked to both of them today, both Audra and Dave, a little bit about this today. And they emphasized that I should ask, like, that Dave was really excited about trying to work on these things. And so if I could emphasize to you guys to make it a priority, to make sure that he knows what your priorities are. And he's
What we're talking about,
So,
that's what we're doing right now.
okay, so I've got various lines drawn here with color codes. We've got the Riverwalk segments that are done, 1, 2, 3. We've got,
Before you go into the details, Anita, can you talk about what your image is, what your vision is for this, what you're doing here?
I have marked the various projects we're working on, that are underway, that are granted, that are desired as high priority, that are desired as lower priority, that are pipe dreams. So,
and you've color coded it?
yeah.
That's so awesome.
So we've got the high priorities that we have been talking about frequently as a committee, have Rawson Avenue, Ames Terrace, probably
Are you talking
now-
about bikeways or sidewalks?
Both.
Both?
What do you want me to talk about?
I didn't know when you said Rawson and Ames, you're talking about sidewalks,
Yeah.
is that right?
Pedestrian and or bike.
Okay.
How would you like me to present?
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to hang in there with you.
Okay. We've also, for sidewalks, we've also talked about extending Pearl Street sidewalk to John, and then along John to Route 1. We've talked about I'm trying to get the other.
I think that project is billed to be done, on Pearl Street,
This is,
the outer Pearl.
these are not granted, they're not funded, they're sort of next on the list. Do you want me to start?
No,
I
that's
can
fine.
start with what's
No,
done.
that's fine.
I can move on to what's underway. Let me do it that way. I'll start with what's done. What's done is these segments of the Riverwalk. I'm not going to talk about the sidewalks in town. What is funded and underway are the Shirt Tail extension, the extension from Thomas Street to Shirt Tail. The Route 1 DOT wider shoulders up to about the town border.
Lincolnville.
with Lincolnville, and the southern Route 1 section, Maritime Farm, which we call Maritime Farms.
Yeah.
Which is not precisely that, but that's the general idea. So those are the things that are granted,
We have grants for you.
that we have grants for, that have energy behind them, but construction has not begun on any of those 3 projects. We are, as you know, looking at combining both the extension from Thomas to Shirt Tail and the Maritime Farms in one grant, and Jeff just mentioned tonight that he's wanting to find out whether that has gone out to bid yet, to get a new bid on. So after we look at those, our next projects, the priorities that we've talked about in town for sidewalks are the Rawson Avenue, that has become more of interest since the bridge is going away, and so we want to incorporate a crossing of the river on Rawson Avenue. We haven't talked about Ames Terrace as a high priority, but we don't know whether that priority in terms of the pathway approach is increased as a result of the bridge at Rawson going away. So that's a question. Another thing we've talked about in terms of sidewalks for town would be extending the Pearl Street sidewalk all the way to John, then along John to Route 1. And the Elm Street going from Rennie's on the northbound side down to the Stop and Go. So that sidewalk is not handicap accessible, and that we have labeled as a high priority, and we've let the town know that. Then we move on to kind of easy things that we have identified as a committee, could be done relatively easily, we think. One is the informal connector, walkway connector between Cobb Hill Road and Ames Terrace, which might go up in the priority list because the culvert of the stream in that area is very damaged, and there's a lot of erosion around it. So that the Public Works may see that as a higher priority, in which case it might be an opportunity to formalize that pedestrian access. Then there is, we've talked about a pedestrian access from John Street down to Conway Road, which would provide pedestrian access through to the shopping area without having to get out onto Route 1.
We talked about that?
Ages ago.
This was on the report, Jeff.
Oh, on the low priority stuff.
Then the pedestrian access.
Is that how you listed as low priority?
Yeah, it's, it's formalizing and paving existing pathway. So these are existing walkways that aren't formalized.
I don't know if you can pave in there, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Right. Another, well, we might be able to buy an easement.
Hold on, what is this walkway? I'm sorry, really quick, where's the walkway that you want to pave?
This one
I don't
is
remember talking about this. It's very
It's
steep.
ages ago.
It's very
John
steep.
Street to Conway Road. It could
Yeah,
be by
there's a-
subway, it could be a little bit
John
further.
Street to Conway Road, isn't that cross Route 1?
No, it's
Oh.
there's a
sorry,
trail.
sorry.
There's a
Yeah,
trail that
It
goes
goes
through
to
the
Mary
woods.
Spring, that road that goes
Oh,
to Mary
that's,
Spring.
and the Historical Society, that's right.
No,
No, oh,
the
that
other
Conway
side.
Road.
that
The other
goes to
side
Mary
of the-
Spring. Conway goes to Mary Spring.
Oh, right.
So there's also a pathway to the affordable housing on Union Street that goes from approximately Rennie's, across the street from Rennie's. And then there's another pathway that was mentioned by the committee when this issue was discussed that connects, I don't remember the name of the first little dead-end road off of Belmont. You remember the name of that?
No,
Down,
Not there anymore. You can't do that anymore.
two of them, can't tell you what it is.
Gone now.
Gone.
Francine's
It's gone.
Okay, forget that. So that
I don't
needs,
remember when we did this.
I'm just reading, this report is from 2014, it's kind of old. Okay, now we move on to other wish lists on the list that we don't see on the horizon. but could be one day. Those include extending Mechanic Street sidewalk all the way to John Street. So so there's one,
At least
we
the
wanted
Windward
to
Gardens.
extend it, and it looks like I didn't draw that in, from Oak Street to Cobb. It would be nice to have that sidewalk extended. I think I
Especially for the
mentioned-
Windward Gardens people, I feel
Yeah.
so bad. They try to get out of there and it's like,
They can't.
yeah.
I neglected to draw that in. That's a little higher in the priority than from Cobb Road, yeah, that's here, from Cobb Road up to John. Then there's John, the rest of John, all the way up to Mechanic. These are all sort of in the same priority list. The other one is Camden Street to the dog park.
Right on cue.
Lime Rock Street to Union Street. Polkcourt Avenue to Union Street.
So it sounds like, Anita, that what you did is you took, I'm going to interrupt you for a sec, because I'm having trouble tracking all of these things and keeping them.
I'm trying to show you on the map. You're supposed to be
Great
following.
visual.
They're not
You're
good
supposed to
enough
be-
on the map. Except to you.
Well,
Yeah.
stand up and lean over, and
I
then you
can
can see.
see.
Okay. There is this is I can send you the list in words of, we really did a very detailed list of this. It talks about how long each section is and all that kind of stuff.
For Dave,
No, this was a long time ago.
for a
and-
report.
Yeah.
But I put that list in,
And so that list is transferred onto that, right? And so you're just going down that list.
And
So
this
I
is-
can resend that out to everybody again, so you have that as a reference.
This is going to get delivered to Dave, right? You're going to give this to him?
So what are you asking
I
of
am
us?
presenting this to the Pathways Committee and asking, is this what you want to give Dave? Do you want to give him something else, or what?
That's good to have, that's good.
It'd be fun for the select board to see that too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
this
we
was
can do
just a
that.
working thing right now.
I did this in tracing paper just
This is
because
so great,
I don't know
Anita.
what.
Thank you.
What
you're
are you
gonna
doing
wanna
about
do.
bikeways?
Well, let me get there.
The original,
Can
okay.
I get there?
Sure.
All right.
This is great. This is part of what you want. What do you mean the original? I think this is what we need too.
No, it would be digitally done so that we could
well,
reproduce it.
I'll make it digital.
So-
Not a JPEG, though, because then it's, yeah, anyway.
I'm good. I can do this. I can do this.
So you guys are nodding that you want this presented, but the thing is that what's not clear in this map is what our priorities are. They're sort of,
Stop.
So you're going to colorize what our priorities are according to their
that's
master plan, right?
kind of, I mean, this says lower priority. I mean, it's a little hard to see the colors if you're looking at it from far away or taking a picture or whatever. Now, in terms of connectors, of course, we've talked about connecting to the snowball, so I've got that drawn in. These are long-term connector needs are in purple.
Do you
and-
differentiate between which ones are sidewalks and which ones are,
So,
For
in a
days.
sense, long-term connector needs, I've got a line that is sort of aligned with Outer Mechanic, Barnestown up to the Snow Bowl, and I've got writing that says some sort of safe bike pathway to Snow Bowl.
This is like a perfect first. Right, and this is, not to interrupt you, but I
It
remember.
could go
when we-
anywhere.
when
It
we
could go
s-
over here.
When we spoke to Dave's predecessor, who was that?
Rick Sabel?
Yeah, and we sat here, and he said this is what he wanted, and we talked about 105, going out to the Snow Bowl, which is what
Yeah.
you've got there. So
Well, that's
is,
not 105, that's
50,
Mechanic.
yeah.
all right, mechanic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then, from this, Dave's going to say, okay, maybe we put a bike lane or something there, or we mark it, right? I mean, that's the result we're getting.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I understand, is that we're going to
I
say
have a
this
little
is,
insight into that I can
We-
add later.
these are where we'd like safe connectors.
Okay.
So he can look for opportunities to move forward. and-
Now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he believes that every street in Camden should have a sidewalk. He said that to me. Like, just,
Can he go to
he
Rockport?
believes in, like,
Okay.
everything this committee believes in. He's pretty
So
great.
we've got out to the Snow Bowl. I drew it along the road, but it could go back, follow the, I don't know, informal paths or whatever they've got back there, the snowmobile paths, doesn't
There are
matter as
paths
long
back
as,
there?
That's
Are
the
not.
number,
There are
that
not.
they have paths going back.
Out there,
that
no.
way.
not anymore?
We're going to find out on 23rd January.
That is right.
Yeah,
That's
exactly,
exciting.
exactly.
Then I say needs safer riding around the lake. So I tried to get information from bike tour groups. Vermont Bicycle Tours does not do our area. Backroads does do our area through Camden and on to Rockland, and back to Camden, around Lake McGuntacook. And Summer Feet Cycling visits Camden on a number of tours, including self-guided biking tours. So some of these tours do around the lake. And in fact, this map has a dotted line around the lake as a bicycle. And if anybody has bicycled around the lake, they know that it's you taking your life in your hands.
There's some
It
crazy
is-
spots.
Right. It is really dangerous. I mean, I do it, and I've survived it so far. Jeff survives it so far, but
That 30 or 40 times a year.
right. But I think if we want to make a safe,
can, or?
you know, we've
It's a
got
death wish. There's no cars.
Is it, is it not dangerous, or it is dangerous?
It depends on your
10-year-olds
perspective.
out there.
I mean, this part is crazy,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
I think that's an
some of this-
over-exaggeration to say it's crazy, but
Well, it's just
Precarious spots just because.
there are. There's no shoulder. There's no shoulder.
At the same time.
Let's
there's
think
no
outdoor
place to go.
economy, public safety.
Right.
It is not an
So-
ideal, it's
so-
not an ideal situation. Everybody who rides bikes rides that route over and over and over,
Yeah.
because there's no choice.
So he should look, basically, I mean, in a way, I don't see the point of giving him a map for long-term connections, because we've already got dotted lines on this already published map saying this is where you should ride. And he knows, if he's driven it, what it looks like for a bicyclist to ride that.
He wants it from us, though, right?
Then
Confirmation.
I've circled here,
So let me just sharpen that a little bit, Nita. You're saying that you're incorporating the bikeways that are recommended on this map, and you're going to put that also onto this map and say these are recommended
he wants
bikeways.
us to, you know, how far does he want us to go in our recommendations?
He wants the bikeways too.
Fine, then what is the problem?
And the paver ramps.
What-
Yeah,
what
I
do-
think that-
what is the
we
problem
have a
with-
list of that already.
Yeah, I was a little bit confused by this too, because I've
We already
seen the
have this
pretty
list.
good list.
It's by address.
Yeah, but maybe you need to sit down.
Okay.
So, by the way, there's also a long,
So
lower
please do.
priority sidewalk connectors that the Pathway Committee has on their list of the entire Beaucaire Avenue, which actually kind of surprises me, because Beaucaire,
Sidewalks over there.
Beaucaire doesn't really, I mean, the traffic is not high and fast there, so
Plus, you'd have to do a lot of disruption to put a sidewalk out there.
walkers and bikers, I think, do fine on Beaucaire. I just wanted to point, I put it on only because it was on the report that we had. as-
But you can still mark things if there ever is a problem. You know, you can mark the road.
Yeah. So I say that we need safer around the lake, so I pointed to both these. And I also highlighted that the East Coast Greenway route goes along the lake here.
It does?
Yes, it's marked on this map as the East Coast Greenway going up the lake here.
That's
What?
not right. That's the wrong side.
Well,
It should go up on 52.
52 to Belfast.
It doesn't go on 105.
Well,
Goes
it
52.
says on this map that
And
it
the only
does.
reason it goes that way is because of Route 1.
Yeah.
So-
No, that's wrong. You check that, Nita.
Maybe it's-
Okay, East Coast Greenway continues then, it's supposed to come up here according to this map, and then I suppose go down past Norton Pond and then along,
Well, if you can check that on the East Coast Greenway site, Anita, it may have been
Okay.
translated. Huh?
I'm going to do it right now.
That'd be great. I'm 90% sure it's 52 going up mountain.
okay. So,
It doesn't
that's,
matter because Camden stops, right,
Right.
halfway down.
Right, this is Camden's border
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
So that's all I could think of in terms of what we could present to our Public Works Director. I was wondering what you
No, I
folks.
think that's awesome, and that's kind of the model of thinking of the Connector Summit, except adding a few more layers.
I didn't put any, we've talked about middle school to high school, but middle school, the Camden section of that is, not anywhere near as much as the Rockport section of that, so I didn't know how to do that. Do you guys recommend anything for that part?
There could be a narrative part of this too, you've already done
The kids I've encountered going from Rockport to the middle school are using the Union.
Are we?
They what?
The-
They use Union Street.
Yeah, Union
And they
Street.
ride down on that, yeah.
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 So the East Coast Greenway, yeah, does, that map is wrong, it goes up the other side, 52.
It goes up 52?
Yeah, it's a complementary route, it's not part of the really Greenway thing, but,
Do they have it still going up Route 1? So they're hoping that it'll get done. We gotta come
it's, yeah, it's
through.
not,
Adventure
it doesn't
cycling
go
is
to,
the same thing, they're always putting their Route 1 section
That's
in
it,
there, and then they
adventure
have a
cyclists.
advisory to go.
Anita, that's the other one,
yeah,
adventure
it's
cyclists.
52 all the way to Belfast.
Adventure
Talk about
cyclists.
taking your life in your hands.
Right, especially go.
That's a tough one. Yeah. That's good, Anita. You did a good job. I'm thinking, does anybody,
So-
Anita asked a question, can anybody think of additional,
Like the connector for the middle
to
school?
pull in additional information?
I think we should get this presented at a select board meeting in some way, just to give everybody an opportunity to say, yeah, great, like, throw our endorsement behind it, so that it's.
I think that's a good
it's
idea, too.
Budget time coming up, and
But it is, it's involving,
really
well, you were
interesting.
gonna synthesize this as to
We
what.
did. We try to put the top 6 of this every year to Rick Seibel, and
I
then,
know, but the select board never even sees it.
See, that's the problem.
The other point is, this is so much
Something?
easier to
Yeah. I mean,
digest.
I don't know, we don't-
I think people just get reading overload.
Nobody's gonna read a big, long thing, but just to focus on a map of the town.
It's a
and
list, though.
it's a list,
Our-
it's very short, it's this
I don't know
long.
why, but I don't, there's a lot of communication that has clearly happened in the past between you and this
Towns.
committee and the Director of
The
Public
towns.
Works. And it's always a mystery to me why we don't have more sidewalks when it's a widely held community value. And even the last 2 budget cycles since I've been on the select board, I said, where can we put more money in? I just want to put more money in the sidewalk line or wherever so that we can do this. And then each time it kind of comes into like, well, we're waiting for this to do this and this to do that.
Great healthcare policy
like-
for all town employees. That's where your money is.
Well, it's not the money, they don't even want to put money in the, I think we have a new Public Works Director that has a little bit of a different philosophy, and also
Oh,
not.
totally.
And the Select Board has a different
Yeah.
philosophy.
Yeah.
So I think now's the time to ask, because I think that's what the community
And
wants.
what Rick, is it Rick or Dave? I can't remember
Dave
who.
now. It's Dave.
But it seemed like such a simple initial fix, which was to say, okay, going out to the Snowball, let's start with that one, fix the road, put some markings on it, right? Wasn't that our conversation that we had with him?
There's no shoulder at all, there's not.
Yeah, to do something, and then that's a start for the town, and that's not a lot of money.
Painting the road there.
So fixing.
Putting warning signs up? Watch
No,
out.
Wasn't there gonna be
There
a
might be
bike lane? It
Somebody
seemed to
just
me-
told me in a select board, last select board meeting I said, is there anything we can do to make Hosmer Pond Road better? And it was like, I don't know who it was, Beth, and they were like, no, definitely not, that'll always be
But how do
awful."
we know that? I mean, we
I
don't,
don't-
we don't know that
No,
until
I-
somebody who's got some, how do we know
Painting
that?
of the road.
How do we know that Hosmer Pond is always as dangerous as it's gonna be? That you have to have cops out there when the kids are out there going from dirt road over to the snowball?
Oh, that's what you're talking about. Oh, I was trying to.
Talking
We're
about-
gonna try some experimental things and see if it works.
Or talk about, how, and this is where Dave's expertise comes in, hopefully, using that map.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Dave when we were looking at the culvert, the erosion issue. We talked about all kinds of things. But one of the things that I learned was that Dave wants this map, and he will try to use all the tools he has in his quiver to start addressing it.
Yeah.
It won't be a home run. They may be singles. In other words, and he gave me a very clear example, he would love to put something on Rawson Avenue, but it's not going to be a sidewalk. What he's thinking of is widening the road a little bit and just striping someplace so there's a shoulder. There is no shoulder now. So that's his solution, which is low cost, but doesn't offer a safe place for people to walk other than a painted shoulder, which isn't there now, but it's a step. And he said, maybe in 5 or 10 years, and we can put some money, we can turn that into a sidewalk. But that, if you just widen the shoulder, you don't have to deal with drainage and all this other kind of stuff. So, and
I don't see why you don't have to drive. That's the whole point, is
well, the
that it's not
curb.
wider because there's drainage issues that have to be resolved on both sides. I don't understand why that.
Sometimes it's
really is
re-ditching
easy.
though. is
For
all you have to
instance,
do.
he said he'll widen the road like a foot on each side without affecting the drainage, and then he'll move the road over so it's up on one side more, and so one side can have a shoulder for walkers. Doesn't fix the bicyclists, but it fixes the
It
walkers.
gets the intention in the mind
That's
of the,
right,
of
and
the
it's
town.
a start. So the message was, give him what we hope for and let him try to figure out how to make it happen. So that was the only thing I can add to this, is that we don't want to tell, the way you said this thing about create something that's safer for people to get out to the snow bowl. That's great. Create something that's safer on Hosmer for the bicyclists to go back and forth. That's him. He figures that out. That's his specialty. We don't need to do that, which is great. That's what a committee's, we don't have to get so tactical.
So that, are we kind of agreeing that that is really our first,
Right. And
Is that-
Anita's request here was can any of us brainstorm some other source of data that she can incorporate here, that she missed? That's what she's asked.
Yeah,
Did she miss
and I was
anything?
wondering about the middle school to high school, because part of that would be in Camden.
Yeah, I don't know. All we did say, and that was deliberate in the priorities, is we weren't specific on how that occurred, because there's so many ways. So Allison had a great recommendation. She says, put it in the narrative. Some things you just doesn't fit on the map. You could say, you could circle the middle school and circle the high school and write, say, some way to connect the two or something.
well, isn't
Yeah.
that in our,
Because whether that goes down Route 1, or whether it goes over through Simonton Corners, or whether it goes overland, we don't know.
well, we do know. We do know, though, in a way, where we set our intention, which was Route 1 to Route 90
Right,
pathways.
that's right.
So we do know.
We do know that that's something.
We knew that Park Street and Meadow Street was a big fail.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
why go through that hassle again
right.
when the DOT owns so much on either side of Route 1?
So given what Linda's saying, we already have this structure started being put together, recommended on the Route 1 thing.
Yeah.
And so I think we're okay on that then. Just leave that. Leave that off, Anita. The high school to the middle school. Or no, leave it there. but
Why
that's
not
okay.
say, to do that gives greater urgency for a section along this pathway along Route 1, and you've talked about the connector from
Yeah.
where the Maritime ends to
Yeah.
Route 90.
Right, but that's not Dave in his immediate work.
That's Rockport. That's all Rockport.
So
I did
let's,
see somebody get off the bus the other day.
We're gonna do this
And
for
when I came
Rockport,
back,
too.
they were
Yeah, I think that's
walking
wonderful.
towards Rockport. But
All right.
they're
Good.
lucky.
I'm going to close this one. And Anita, the next step is, well, for clarity, the next step is, Allison, did you volunteer to make this into something that's an editable map? Is that what you just offered?
I will do whatever is, this can be scanned the way it is, or it can be easily, let's see what Dave needs from it. He's actually pretty good at mapping things, so he might
take this and do it?
All the I think I told you this, all the trash cans in town, and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
sent me a PowerPoint presentation. I couldn't believe it. It was my dreams come at like,
Oh, my
he did, so this might be like perfect for him, and then he might put it into his system.
So now, the thing that I was really not sure about is that we've got some pipe dream stuff mixed in with what we consider to be much higher priority, and
And hopefully you've listed it as priorities.
I think Ames Terrace is, if the Pathways Committee would consider elevating Ames Terrace. Because you said you'd never talked about Ames
we
Terrace,
haven't
the full
talked
thing,
about
but
putting Ames
that's the only
Terrace at
way
the
to.
same priority as Rawson. But it was prioritized as a lower priority when the bridge
was
was
Right.
not planned to be.
I'm fine with upping its priority. I think, give him the map and
Yeah.
let him fly.
Depend on what
at
he
this
can
point.
get done, and
Yeah. Two things. One is, just a real quick update. MDOT has agreed to allow pedestrians to continue to cross.
no, it's at their own.
It's at your own risk. They're not gonna put up a fence. In other words, they have too many other things to do. But
Yeah, that was a fun.
that was great.
Disclosure sign there.
It just says closed, but you can, a disclosure. So it's at your own risk. So pass the word, it's at your own risk, but it's going to stay just the way it is.
Take it home to your parents.
Yeah, it's just the same way it is. The second one is, Anita, this just occurred to me, somehow on this map or in narrative form, you have to be super clear on priorities. It's not enough just to throw this all out. Somehow we also need a priority list, but I think we have
She's
that.
got that, yeah, she's written.
She says she's mixed it in here.
It was color-coded.
It's
think,
not.
Dave,
It's not color coded that way.
Select word to weigh into it'll
It
add
is,
power
Jeff.
to it. But,
There's red versus pink.
Yeah, don't belabor it too long, because then
All right.
That's what he
it'll
doesn't
drive
like,
you
it's what you just
crazy.
said, give him the broad goals, and then the idea is that it should be safe everywhere in town to walk or.
But you don't think he wants like high, medium, low?
He's got to figure out according to his
I
budget.
think you should just keep checking in with him.
Okay.
A lot, and
All right, that was just a thought.
if.
But if you
he can
give it
always
to him
come
in a
back and
punch
bounce.
list too, it may be the two ways.
He was gonna come back and see what
Which we
costs
have,
money
the
and what
punch
doesn't, and.
Jeff, you brought up the Rawson Avenue Bridge.
We're
Can
gonna
I bring up something on the Rawson Avenue Bridge?
Something else?
Well, we've talked about, DOT says that if Camden wants to continue crossing the bridge with have the pedestrian access, then Camden has to pay for half of the demolition.
No, that's not
no,
what they
that's
said.
just- is what
No,
they
no,
said.
this is not our discussion
Yeah, that's too
here.
much.
This is not our discussion here.
That was thrown out as a possibility,
That's
but
thrown out.
it's all, that's like the negotiating thing that happens
That's
in
a whole
that.
nother thing. But is that what you want to talk about? A position on that, or?
Say what I want to say, and then you can tell me it's hogwash.
Okay.
So I think the town needs to figure out what our share of that demolition plus their idea of a pedestrian bridge would be versus what our share would be, what our cost would be of doing the pedestrian bridge ourselves after they have done the demolition and done the landscaping and done all the fixing up that they would do after demolishing the bridge. It might
Yeah,
be
Bob's
cheaper.
really on this.
They're
Like,
on that.
he's-
This is not us.
Bob loves
This is not
to,
us, Anita.
he's like 5 steps ahead of I think the goal is very well aligned, and that Bob's
Wait,
doing a pretty
wait
good
second,
job.
Allison. Is your question a financial question and recommending to the town on how to approach this financially? Is that what you wanted to bring up?
Well, I was going to suggest that we, have
Is this a financial question on how the town should
Sort
approach
of.
it? Talk to the town. Don't
have
talk to us.
DOT do all their work
No.
getting rid of it.
Yeah,
And then
talk
the
to
next
Bob,
day, literally,
and I
we come in
suggest
with
Bob's
one of
on
those
it.
aluminum arch bridges.
Yeah.
Stick it across the bridge.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, we make plans for a pedestrian bridge.
This is good sideline talk, strategizing with
Yeah.
Bob, I think.
There's a project going on that's not, the Pathways Committee is not doing it. We advocated, we're getting the response we're hoping for, it's moving forward. That's fine. I think.
This is unrelated to all of this, so I'm just wondering when you're going to
Hang
move
on
it
a sec.
forward.
Is anything else on Anita's thing?
No, it's bedtime, but I just had a question for you.
I'll push the Rockport Fire Station to the next
Yeah.
agenda. in all fairness, Anita, do you feel like you were shut off and you want to delve into this some more and write an email or a memo to the town from this
I would
committee?
like to know what you would like me to do next with this.
It sounds like the next step is give it to Bob.
Okay, and I think that you're suggesting that what we drew up earlier, which was, I think, in 2014, is a priority list of high, medium, low, just to give that in written form along with this, and so they can sort it out between this code.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the priorities listed real well here. I have to look at it.
It says
Let's
sidewalk.
clarify what he needs.
Requested
I think the map is great,
in pathways comp plan
he said.
or high priority pathway committee. Riverwalk future, long-term
Talked to him today.
connector needs, formalized paved areas, and lower priority sidewalk connectors.
Maybe you'll go up and you'll talk to him with this map.
I think that's what you should do. That's it.
Yeah, just go on up there and represent the pathways.
All right, so the question is whether there's anything else that I left off.
No, you did a good job.
Jane?
We just want to make sure he budgets for if there are
I
things,
don't know off the top of my head.
he should have this in the back of his mind so we can put in money into the budget before.
Make
it's-
sure he knows that somehow, and I almost would be tempted to do it, is to mark in another color the bikeways. Because you're assuming they're there because they're in the underlay of the map.
I'm gonna drop this off with discussion and pick up my map later. And he can go buy his own copy of this map
Okay.
and keep the overlay. I mean, what else? That's the best thing to do, it
You
seems
guys
to
will
me.
figure it out.
Right,
Can I ask a question before we adjourn?
yeah, go,
So on the corner of Union and Route 1,
yeah,
the reconstruction and the tree and all of that?
yeah.
Where does that stand? What's going on with all of that? You know?
That's,
DOT moving. I asked Jeremy today.
the last update we got was they are incorporating the bump out by the, that was a long time ago, I reported on that. I don't know, I haven't heard anything the DOT has capitulated on since then. At the tree specifically is your question?
Well,
Or just the whole
have
project?
the emails between the town and the superintendent, the school superintendent about the tree. I'm just wondering, I don't remember, so I must have missed that meeting talking about the sidewalks at that intersection and the effort to save the tree. That's an elm tree.
It's not, I don't believe it's an elm tree. I think it's an
Okay.
ash tree, but,
Ash tree, whatever.
it's-
It's a big old tree.
Jeremy said today, because I said I'm going to go to the Pathways Committee meeting, they might ask,
Yeah.
and he said, yeah, it's been too long since, he said that after the school did their vote and blah, 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 he sent that to DOT, let them know, the town really wants to save the tree, the school is willing to give the land to the town if that helps.
Yeah.
And he hasn't heard anything back yet, so he said, that reminds me, I'm going to write them again and see if I can get an update. And I said,
Okay, but the tree is not totally endangered, not from this local point of view, but the DOT might want to take the tree? Is
I
that-
think the tree is
The
in
DOT
danger. We haven't heard that it's not. We're hoping to save it. And
The DOT had the tree on the plan,
It did, okay.
yeah. And
So-
it had the sidewalk going on a diagonal on the school side of the tree.
Okay,
the public
Between the-
hearing, but then
between
they
the rock-
changed it.
It did?
So
Not to-
that was what this
the
whole thing
engineering?
came from,
Oh.
that the tree was going to be saved. Everybody, when we were all here, they
Yeah,
presented it,
yeah,
but then
yeah.
they came back and they said,
No.
no, it looks like the tree's going to have to go. And that was
Oh.
at
Well, I
various
didn't hear
meetings.
that.
and
They probably
we went,
said
"Ah,
it's
ah, ah, ah,"
ash, it's
and that's
gonna
why this
die
is
anyway.
happening. That's
Yeah.
why, and then Jeremy's been working with, because they said they didn't want to go to the trouble of having to, they might need some of the school's land. And there was a lot of work to try to take that from the school. And so Jeremy worked with Maria.
Yeah, Maria says fine, the
They were
board voted,
fine, that
yeah.
their resolution, everything, and so now
That's interesting.
we're
And,
trying
you
to.
know, and I did talk to the principal at the,
And that's where Jamie Stone feels that the intersection at Free Street and Route 1, right there, is like the most dangerous in town for kid, when they do their bike to school day.
I was talking about the principal at the Montessori school.
Okay.
the Montessori school.
People don't see it because it's
Well, it's not, they're,
And there's
They're
too much
renters. But I
commotion.
asked him what
big
his
shrubs,
position was. He said,
you know,
absolutely not.
it's really
it's not
hard.
his choice.
It's a little
Luckily, we
dark.
went around him.
Can I,
That's terrible.
can I ask whether I should include improved safety on this section in spite of the fact that the greenway is, you're saying, actually along here?
That's a higher priority, the Greenway. But it'll be rerouted anyway with Route 1.
And there's already a shoulder on 52.
There's been this
I
discussion
don't.
about a crosswalk there too.
This is just,
Is that
this is
committee?
super low priority, and it'll never get done in terms of priorities. There's just not that much money, Anita. This is like lots of money.
What I'm going to say is that we would like safer connections on these two
Fill in
roads.
the wetlands.
There are
By the way, the
sitting at
greenways.
this table who may be interested in this plea, which is that the high school is looking for a Nordic ski coach. And we are desperate. Certain people who are sitting at this table who might be interested in doing that.
It's well known.
Well known at this
I
stage.
promised that I would twist some arms.
Good job.
Thank God, I'm really available for twisting.
They have a ski coach at the high school, that's,
We do not have a ski coach at the high school.
need one.
We have,
Oh, cross
We
country.
have two names. Yeah, great progress has happened in the past 2 days,
nice. You're welcome.
so,
Did Gabe ever get in touch with you?
yeah.
Not, yeah.
He had been on skis
We're
since he
adjourned.
graduated from high school. He's-
You can retrain.
Phone off now, Linda.
What's that? Turn it off?